more and more we should involve civil society institutions in this regard. The mass media, civil society institutions, NGOs. Why? Because it's very important to provide a kind of system checks and balances.
Having access to this kind of information because we didn't have
Yes.
certain platforms that allowed us to see what's going on.
I think it's the most important that people has to believe to us, and we are doing, and the government of Uzbekistan is doing that.
Multi-billion money laundering cases.
Reforms has been done from 2016.
Hello everyone, welcome to the CPR podcast. Today's topic is new anti-corruption initiatives in Uzbekistan. Recently, the president of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, held a meeting on anti-corruption, and today we decided to invite two guests, two doctors, let's say. Our first guest is Dr. Pulatov Bakhtiyor. Welcome to our CPR podcast.
Thanks.
And Dr. Umid Yakubkhodjayev.
Nice meeting you again.
Yes, thank you. So to kick off the discussion, the first question is, why is this particular meeting generating so much attention? So as if it's sort of a hype going on around this topic. Didn't we have this kind of meetings before? Like, what are the main initiatives proposed in this meeting, and how are they different from previous anti-corruption policies of Uzbekistan?
All right. I think corruption is a very important topic to discuss, and not just to discuss. You know that globally it's a very big issue for the countries. Even you have a different kind of rankings out there,
Yes.
in international level, and you can see that some of the countries, they are very, in a sense of the corruption development, they are very safe or top ranking countries. But even in those countries, you can see certain crimes occurring time by time, and even multi-billion money laundering cases on top ranking
At the
countries.
high level, right?
Yes, at a high level. So in this sense, I can say that I can use the analogy of incurable viral disease.
Incurable.
Incurable
Interesting.
viral disease you are living with. The corruption is similar kind of phenomenon. You have to be, in this sense, I'm not saying that you cannot do anything,
Or you shouldn't do anything.
or you shouldn't do anything. Why? Because the end is you're soon dead if you are not going to tackle with the side effects or the progression of the illness. So the corruption is a kind of phenomenon that keeps all the countries on alert to tackle it, to deal with this, to deal with its side effects. Why? Because everything and many things depend on that. Corruption is a very, very serious threat to democracy, rule of law, to the justice, social justice, equality, even to the promotion of investment climate in the country. Therefore, it should be top one priority for the country to curtail this evil in the reality of the life of our socium, of our state. In this regard, I think this meeting was very timely. Why? Because Uzbekistan is doing a lot in terms of tackling with the corruption. But if you look into the best practices or the recommendations of international specialized agencies, organizations scrutinizing this phenomenon, they recommend you to be on alert and to update your policy in order to be in line with the current challenge you have. So during this meeting, I saw that kind of approach from our government, from our president. He voiced about more than 50 initiatives with regard to the fine-tuning the mechanisms we have to combat the corruption, to eliminate the negative effects of the corruption and the act of corruption as it is.
Okay, Dr. Pulatov?
Yes, I think as my colleague has described really nicely about this, the introduction of why is this today, is this happening, in terms of the environmental scientists, maybe, or this environmental from the political side, I could say that it's kind of the plant that you grow. If you cut the roots, it stops to grow. Since this is also, how care you about your citizens, how we have to be careful, like this in the corruption system is the root of this all of our development. I think today is under the leadership of the president of Uzbekistan, it shows the concrete measures, this meeting, and the reforms on the development, on the how to eradicate the corruption. It has a strategy until 2030 that has to be done and we have to go, because Uzbekistan today, I think, is if my colleagues will, I'm not lying, but today showing in Central Asia, it's the leading role, and we have to show this. And we have the model that is, and people is looking at the Uzbekistan and how we behave. So that's why I think today is not today, but I mean, actually is the right moment when we have, it's never late, because the corruption, it's already, the different measures has been done today, but this is another level that shows a concrete measures with concrete strategy and how to eradicate the corruption. There is another initiative provided by the president of Uzbekistan, mentioned, and that in the meeting, that the ministries, and when become the ministries, they have to develop the anti-corruption strategy if they want to be minister. They have to show that what they will, what they're going to be done, what they're going to do with, and how to combat the corruption.
So any minister.
Any.
Okay.
This is the one of the key messages in the discussion.
So the prerequisite to become a minister means that they should be expert in his own field, and plus
but how he want to combat. For example, there is a lot of digitalization, AI, and this kind of technology has to be included. There is now, but what other measures to in order to combat this, to eradicate the corruption from the system.
In one's own ministry, right? Within
the ministry.
Because you have a kind of different sectors. For example, when it comes to the corruption element or phenomenon for the healthcare system, the Minister of Construction, the water management is also kind of very important areas to look into and to pay attention, I mean. And that's why one of the most important initiatives in this regard was to give the anti-corruption compliance departments of those ministries under the auspices of the anti-corruption agency. So they are directly going to monitor this process.
Okay, they now have power. It's not only a sort of think tank which is studying the corruption, but now it has. Yes. Okay, I see now.
That's one thing, and another thing, as my colleague mentioned, the minister, the person who wants to be a minister should also include into his working agenda or program the anti-corruption element as well. But another important thing is that nowadays we have a capacity in a local level. So the president wants local government agencies, the local representative bodies to play important role in this action.
You mean local councils, right?
Yeah, local councils, yeah. So in developing areas, scrutinizing the areas where we need to take certain measures and propose those measures and take those measures. That's a very important thing. Another thing is that, to my mind, is that the involvement more and more we should involve civil society institutions in this regard, the mass media, civil society institutions, NGOs. Why? Because it's very important to provide a kind of system checks and balances and the information where you get information, right? And this regard, civil society institutions could be a wonderful mechanism, and is wonderful institutions to provide that opportunity for the government to inform the government where it should pay attention and what kind, even propose certain solutions in this regard. That's one thing. Another thing is civil society plays a very important role in promoting the culture of zero tolerance towards corruption. Right. That's also very important to my mind, the initiative that helps us to progress in this regard, because we have to progress in order, I would say, to achieve our ambitious goals in economy, in achieving those strategic goals by 2030. We have to be very efficient in terms of how we regulate and how we use money. That's why the president also mentioned about the investment projects and how we should deal with the usage of money in the investment projects. Because
you mean the public money in
public
buying
money,
stuff? Is it
private money? It doesn't matter.
To add his on top of it, I think is that, for example, if you're an investor, for example, if you want to come to Uzbekistan, you have to be sure that you want to give the money and there is no corruption.
You earn something back,
yes,
right?
you want to earn something back, but we have to provide all these laws to have to be really works like a clock. And this is also to invite the investors to show that the country is anti-corruption strategy, that there is going to be transparency and accountability is very important. When we are transparent, we are open.
So can I summarize what you just said by, when a government implements certain anti-corruption measures, sort of people engaging in corruption, they adapt to the system, and the government should redo it to change the system so that what can I say, cut the roots of the corruption. Can I say that? Will it be wrong?
Probably we should add another aspect.
Okay.
It's not just about how people like starting being clever with the policies you're implementing and finding out the way outs from the situation. No, I mean you are learning from by implementing certain policies.
Okay.
And you will see how it is working, how it is effective in terms of the implementation of the policy objectives and the results. So during this meeting, it was a very critical meeting, I would say, because it's very important to have a critical kind of mindset in order to fix or fine-tune to make it more effective, the system. Why? Because for the 8 years, we have been introducing a number of initiatives in this regard. For example, we have amended a lot of legislative acts. We have adopted new legislative acts, for example.
Specifically on anti-corruption measures, right?
Relating to the anti-corruption policies. For example, conflict of interests. Very important legislative act. Or introducing new government agencies or the system of the internal compliance, kind of very important institutional settings as well. For example, in the foreign countries, you can see, you can find legislations on whistleblowers or complaining system. So we have introduced that kind of mechanism within the government, public institutions, and within the certain sensitive sectors of economy. More than 100 agencies, the public bodies, institutions have their internal mechanisms to prevent corruption, to fight against corruption, right? So more than that, we have introduced transparency in the government functioning of the government. For example, nowadays citizens can apply to the government services by means of electronic platforms. They don't need.
You mean e-gov, right?
E-government system, yes, ecosystem. You don't need to apply for a person for the physical person, natural person to get a benefit or to get a service. So it also tremendously curtails the corruption element within the mechanism. Why? Because it's very important for the government. And that's why our political party also supports further improvement of the platforms. That
Digitalization,
of this government services in this regard. So as you can see, and the openness. Nowadays, people say that a lot of things happening, a lot of cases are there with regard to the corruption. It's not the rise of the corruption, I would say, in some regards. It's just nowadays we know that this thing is happening, and the government takes actions.
So you mean that before we didn't have an access to this kind of information because we didn't have certain platforms that allowed us to see what's going on in the corruption system?
It's not just a platform. I would say that it's a mentality of the government or the approach of the government, because it's very important to have a government support in this regard. And the government, since 2016, a lot of things changed. We are not trying to keep it in secret. Yes, that's a phenomenon in our society. We have to deal with this. We have to tackle this situation, right?
I think the international indexes on like
Openness.
corruption perception, right? They also like indicate that Uzbekistan is, I mean, improving in terms of corruption perception positively. I mean, it's not like, of course, among top 10, but still it's improving, and it's in a good position in Central Asia, right?
We are progressing in this regard. And as for the Central Asia, we are a top country with regard to the Istanbul action plans. Yes, we are doing a lot in this regard, but still there are a lot of things we have to deal with, we have to implement, and that's why there were more than 50 initiatives of the president. He is kind of directing us towards the solutions as he sees as a head of the government to tackle with the certain institutional challenges.
Going back to, like, let's say the wide spread of this meeting, like it went viral, right? So as you said, we have so many initiatives implemented from 2016 until today, but why this meeting became like widespread? Are there any new initiatives which are like unique, or what's the reason behind it?
I think is a good question, although also it's it's most important that we have to believe the people is already not trusting us. I think it's the most important that people has to believe to us, and we are doing, and the government of Uzbekistan is doing that. And
just for the record, I just want to add something. Recently read the survey provided by Edelman Institute, and it says that I thought like only in Uzbekistan people do not trust institutions, and they show that the tendency that it's going on overall in the world, this kind of tendency, I mean, distrusting towards the government. So just for the record, I added that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, actually. I mean, here we have to, the corruption system it's not on Uzbekistan, it's all over the world. Even the European countries and US, you can find this corruption. Yes, it's only matter that depending on the level, high level or low level, yeah, that's at different levels. So you have to understand what is the real measures that I think is today that my colleague mentioned, that it's a lot of reforms has been done from 2016. If you go back to 2016, you go to the field like from environmental side, just ecologists, maybe expert say you have to go, and the police officer has always write in the papers. But now today is digitalizing. This also shows that the system, the digitalization is one step forward that we are doing. Many things is digitalizing now, like taking the banks from the credits, for example. it takes 5 minutes now. Before you take a lot of it's a bureaucracy. Yeah, this
Lots
bureaucracy,
of paperwork preparing for.
lots of paperwork, lots of bureaucracy. You have to take from the medical, like the letter, from the police office, from the mahala. Yeah, these are the different things that that makes people annoying. For example, now it's changed. Yeah, you just easily from mobile. You could just get the credit. For example, this is the one example that it shows. This also has been in the reforms.
Okay, and what are the new initiatives then? If we've done so many things,
you know, my colleague mentioned about the different levels of the corruption. You have high-level corruption, you have low-level corruption, or so-called petty corruption. So the president in his speech mentioned about the petty corruption, the low-level corruption.
Grassroots, do we call grassroots? Yes.
The first kind of
so, for example, bribing police officers, right?
Yes,
this kind
the
of
officer you are meeting first for the first time when you are dealing with the situation, right? The first level officer, I would say. So this is still a big issue for us because he mentioned about 70%, 75% of the corruption happening in that level.
Sort of it became a part of a culture of us, right?
Yes, that's true. That's the culture of corruption in a sense. So that's why he proposed a kind of complex approach to deal with the situation. It's not just enough to introduce very tough sanctions in a criminal code. It's not enough. For example, Denmark, they don't have very high punishment for the corruption cases. Still, it is one of the top countries in the ranking.
Interesting.
Yes. However, this element is very important as well, because you have another example of, for example, China. The punishment is one of the most important deterrent. Why? Because in the literature you can see the kind of formula developed by for the corruption ranking or corruption possibility, opportunities. Corruption equals to, there's a lot of scientific research in the area, and they have developed kind of formula for the corruption. Corruption equals to economic rent. That's the opportunity for the public servant to benefit from the position, from the opportunity to use the government money or the government functions for
their own benefit.
For the benefit, yes. And then you have plus discretionary opportunity. That's probably legislative part, when you have provided the government official with the opportunity to choose to act as he wishes. And that's why it's very important to have a very effective legislative act in this regard. And minus the accountability. Accountability is a kind of sanctions part. So if you have a bigger accountability, the corruption will be lower.
Okay, which approach then are we taking?
But
are we for deterrent or preventive approach?
But there is no clear-cut answer to that question. It all depends, and it's also dependent on this mentality of the society. You have just imagine you have a society with the zero tolerance for the corruption.
That would
then
be
you
great.
don't need a big accountability part there, right? So probably the Denmark case is a kind of example for that. So that's why our president, he proposed a kind of approach. It's not just about tough sanctions. It's not just about effective legal instruments. It's not just about establishing new institutions. It's also about the upbringing of children, the culture of zero tolerance towards the corruption. That's
The
why
thing
he
is the strategy that become that anti-corruption strategy until 2030. It really shows that from kindergarten to the growth stage.
Okay.
This is also one of the key points that it's mentioned there, that we have to teach them from the childhood.
So what do you mean by teaching? Will we have to like?
For example, the proposal was about introduction of special courses or the topics with regard to the corruption prevention in schools, as he mentioned, even in the kindergarten level, right?
I see.
And in institutions, right? But that's one part of the story. It's not just about the educational system, because imagine that you are teaching to your student to be rule-abiding citizen. However, if the reality is different,
Yes,
then
they will adapt to that.
The efficiency. The big teacher is your mahalla. In
Exactly.
our words, it's a neighborhood, right?
Yes.
That's why another important proposal of the president is to work with in that level. So he now requires the agency, anti-corruption agency, to work with the neighborhoods directly in a low level.
Okay.
Because if you want to achieve certain goals, you have to also deal with the low-level corruption. You have to deal with the low-level corruption for sure. That's the start of everything, I would say. Why? Because during the meeting, another very important aspect was touched upon, emphasized. That's the staff, enhancement of the quality of the staff we have, and the choice.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
It's kind of, I think is the, if I understand correctly, that it means, my colleague, what it's kind of that in the decision of the when selecting the staff, we don't have to take from his kind of perspective where he studied or where he educated. We have to start with his level of the capability, of the work capability, for example.
Is education not important then? Doesn't mean so.
I mean, that's one element.
Okay.
But you also have to take into consideration other things. For example, if you look into the best practices, they're checking your private life as well. If you're working for the agency that's fighting against corruption, so it's not just about which university you have graduated. They're checking your, for example, credit history, debt history.
Okay, finally.
They're checking your social contacts, whether you are in contact with certain criminal elements. That's also important.
Interesting.
Why? Because the person who's going to maintain the rule on anti-corruption, he should also live with those rules, right? You shouldn't have any kind of conflict interests with regard to his history, because it affects. That's one thing. Another thing is that the gross root, or as you said, or the low-level corruption. That person is going to work, that's the start of his position. Then he will move on the career.
But how are we going to check that information? Will we have a sort of a record of history? Is it how it's going to be work?
Records? Well, for example, we have mentioned about the digitalization.
Okay.
You can find, to be honest, everything about me now.
Really?
How much I earned, what kind of property I have, and the credit history.
Because you're a public official, right?
No.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Really? Yes.
I see.
Because we have a system, government system. We are helping people to make a transaction faster, right?
The declaration has to be developed and by the 1st of April. It has to be done until in 2025. This has to be on behalf of the legislative chamber, that we will be responsible for the development of this how to say
the framework or law.
I mean the framework of this law and this and the measures, anti-corruption measures. We have to include these. All these steps has to be included. Yeah?
So by April the 1st, right?
Yeah.
It's finally, like, we finally reached that level. I mean, it has been so discussion around this topic, and how many years? Like 6-7 years? I don't know. And finally it's there, right? From the 1st April, the law should be there, right?
No, not the law, the development.
The development
yes,
of law by,
yeah.
okay, I see.
We start to develop and then drafting one. Yeah.
Drafting legislative
I think is
act.
the one was a drafting. I was trying to look at. It's a drafting to prepare to the Senate to in order to be accepted. Yeah.
And it will be discussions around this law,
course,
right?
so,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, but I would like to add that the infrastructure is there, as I mentioned, because the information about my income, the wealth I have, is already there.
Okay.
Nowadays, we are speaking about transparency of that information. So if you are a government official, then you have to be transparent. And it means that you can obtain this information, not see that information, right? But information is there because we have digital platforms where we keep the information about the salaries, the work experience, the history, labor history, and the wealth we have, and other kind of transactions, yes.
Okay, let me play sort of a devil's advocate here. So I'm an investor. Why should I invest in Uzbekistan? How would you... so I have a sort of perception that, you know, Uzbekistan is a corrupt country. My money is not guaranteed. But based on these kind of initiatives, what would you say? How would you respond? Why should I trust investing money?
Well, I would say that I disagree with you because the figures we have for the last 6-7 years in terms of foreign direct investment, more than 120 billion USD shows that investors believing in the reforms happening in Uzbekistan and the things we are doing so far. But in the beginning of this conversation, I have started with the analogy, the viral disease that you have, incurable.
You mean that you'll face anywhere? So
No, what I'm saying is you have to be very active, proactive in terms of the corruption prevention. You have to adopt, learn, and implement new policies because it's a kind of, in our situation, it's kind of developing policy.
okay.
You cannot just say, well, we have done this, that's it. You are learning from what you have done. It's kind of project management, actually, and implementing certain new things. And with regard to the investment, new thing was that nowadays, let's pay attention to how those investment money or investment projects efficiently using it, whether it's effective, whether we have a kind of corruption element there. Yes, to promote investment. Why? It's for the sake of the investment, for the sake of the efficiency, right? Then another important thing in this regard, in the economy, I would say, is also government procurement. How effectively we are using public money.
Yes.
I think that was one of the main topics,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
it
Yes.
is.
So what's
The-
new in that?
They will be monitored, both the governmental budget and non-governmental budgets as well. Yeah.
We were monitoring before as well, right?
Yeah, but
what's
now
new?
it's more focused on localized, more nationwide. Like for example, not taking the more from the abroad, but maybe more using the local stuff, from the local currency. Yeah, it means that we have to support our this development, and it's the not bringing from the abroad is the one. But I think is the one of the key messages. Just a little bit go back to your message on the investment. You asked the question how, why, because this is the message just was given by the president. It means it lead for investors. Yeah, we want to not want, we will have this eradicate all the corruptions, because the message was this, yeah, and that's why I think is that your question will be answered in a different way, saying why I want to invest, because we have these days has been a lot of initiative incentives given by the government. It's one, and one or two or three people cannot be make a big black hole for the whole country. Yeah, because there is an initiatives, there is an incentives given to support to new investors, and this is another extra that right to the moment, because we are growing very fast. For example, it's each year, and on the if you look at demography, 1 million people each year.
It's a huge market.
It's
right?
a huge market and a huge need for the food, for the transportation, for all these properties, and it's the cities is growing very fast. That's why we have to go on with the reforms, and our laws and initiatives has to be equalized. Yeah.
The most important thing is that the amended constitution have several articles on anti-corruption policy or anti-corruption regulatory frameworks there, the norms there. For example, nowadays Senate has the authority to approve the head of the anti-corruption agency of Uzbekistan. So that's the role of the parliament. Another thing is that he is reporting to the parliament,
not
about
to the president.
No,
right?
about the work, about the results of his work or her work in the office, right? That's a very important thing. Another important thing that
so it means that the parliament is participating in overseeing anti-corruption situation.
Yes, because when you are referring to the anti-corruption policy, you have to also think about checks and balances. That's why probably one of the important initiatives of president was to give more authority to the agency and change the system we used to have with regard to the prosecutor's office, the tax office, and the Minister of Internal, and their involvement into the process. So that's also a very important step.
What has changed in that?
Nowadays, the agency is responsible in a neighborhood level.
You mean Ministry of Internal?
No. The agency, anti-corruption agency, is responsible for that issues nowadays, because agency should not be a kind of statistical office. It should promote development in the area, to promote certain new actions against corruption, right?
One of the key messages was
that
he has to go down.
Yeah,
and we work with the people, work with the local, the government, local institutions, to eradicate this corruption system, not to be only the statistical
agency, right? Agency. And another important thing you have mentioned about the public procurement, right? In the public procurement, it's very important to have a transparency. For example, we have nowadays a kind of element, government-private partnership, and the construction area. So they have introduced şeffaf kuruluş. If we would translate it, it will be transparent construction platform. So which allows you as a entity which wants to participate in the tender transparently. So you know for sure which company participating in this process with what kind of proposals, right? That's also a kind of very important initiative, and it shows a lot of progress. It helped us to involve more participants into the construction work. It's not just about 5 or 10 companies anymore, right? That was a kind of main positive result
from the policy, and now we want to introduce this kind of best example to the government procurement system. So in order to make it more transparent, to introduce certain criteria for the selection, right, in the tender. That's one thing. Another thing is that this year we are trying to transform our economy in a green way. So we are introducing new financial mechanisms, green investment or green credit, carbon credits. That also requires you a kind of very elaborated system.
What do you mean by green investment? You mean in green economy?
Yes.
If you're
whenever you want to invest, for example, today there is an availability of, you have a green project, and you can go to the bank. There isn't a finance. If you want to build a clean and kind of factory or industry, something to production on recycling, wastewater or other, the bank can provide you with some with incentives, to provide with incentive the green investment. This shows you green investment. It's more about how you for example, Uzbekistan taken the responsibility commitment to reduce the greenhouse gas emission for 35%. And now all the agencies, all the governmental agencies, economic sector, they have to prepare their own strategy to reduce these greenhouse gases. And these are all the system that shows you green transition, green economy, and green development of things.
That's one element, yes, very important one. Another one, you can introduce certain kind of technological developments or the processing, because we have standards, international standards with regard to the sustainability, right? If you're introducing those kind of standards in your production, in your service supply, then you can be certified as environmentally friendly business. And getting that kind of status, you can, legal status, you can get more favorable conditions when you are applying for the investment or for the credit, right? Interest rates could be different. So this system also requires certain new approaches and that kind of proposals with regard to the government binding and the government procurement, also a wonderful kind of mechanism to use in this regard. So we have so many new developments in the area, and we have to introduce certain policies to curtail discretionary power for the anyone in power to decide, right?
Okay, so our final topic. So we know that AI, digitalization are growing fast. Estonia is one of the best examples, right? Which implements. Do we have any initiatives in this regard?
On the AI?
AI, for example.
AI, I mean, it's very important also because today is artificial intelligence becoming the most important topic everywhere. Even the daily life. Some people using the ChatGPT. Yes, it's also AI. Artificial intelligence. And for example, my background is more in geoinformation science, like from the satellites. You can measure, you can calculate the trees, how much the trees, and this is also algorithm. AI is mainly algorithm. And they can identify if you are lying or not lying based on your face,
which is good for anti-corruption, right?
Exactly. Or for example, how many times you have been, for example, take or withdraw or lie the system, or for example, in the cars, and if he really did a mistake and he crossed the red light, or he didn't cross, this AI could help make an easy life.
Okay. But what about like
But
eradicating the corruption overall, like corruption system, how is it going to be
corruption
integrated?
is about human-to-human interaction.
Okay.
So AI could help in this regard. Why? Because AI could take certain functions from human. For example, you're calling, you want to get certain information. Well, why you need certain nowadays you have a technological advancement that allows you not to have someone in person there, but AI to answer the questions, right? That's one example, which helps you actually to curtail to deal with the corruption element there. The same true about the services we are providing. For example, you mentioned about the traffic regulation. If there is a person, there is an element that person could take certain measures that certain decisions that yes is not a lawful one, right? But if you're using artificial intelligence there's
no space for bribing, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's one element. Another element is artificial intelligence is a wonderful opportunity for analyzing the data we have, because it's very probably in some cases difficult to find out where that bribe is happening or the corruption is happening. And if you are using the artificial intelligence based kind of programs, they can help you, the program can help you to identify those sectors. You are not going to through all that paperwork or the information scrutiny, right? That's also one element of artificial intelligence to help. Then,
just came in my mind I don't like to drop on, but
yeah, no worries.
But if you go to the official governmental, for example, medical clinic sites, there is an artificial intelligence platform. They said, if you don't want to wait, you can ask me the question. Yes. This artificial intelligence, it makes easy and faster that do not cross border with the people, human to human, and it helps you to navigate where do you want, which kind of disease you have or what problems you have, and he will navigate. You have to go this and there. Otherwise, before I was to come to hear you, I have to first of all to meet you and say, oh, I have this problem. Okay, you have problem.
And the government should pay me
lots
of money for working, right?
And you have to go there, not here. If you go there, sometimes it's a mistake. But this system makes you clear on where to. And it's this, for example, digitalization goes to also medical structure. When I was in one of the regions, when we did the survey, and you can see that you can now officially register yourself and look your numbers. Which number are you? Or first or 10, and you can plan your stuff. You plan your day. Before you have to sit 10 hours or 5 hours in order to wait your queue. I think this AI will help you make faster.
Okay,
I see. Simplifying the process, very important, yes. Because when we are speaking about anti-corruption measures, when it comes to the legislation, we are saying that legislative acts should be very elaborated in order not to leave any discretionary power to the officials, right? But when it comes to the ordinary citizens and their needs, probably it's better to have a simplified solutions, right? This one is artificial intelligence helps in this regard, but another one is the information, providing the information, correct information. For example, corruption happens when you don't know your rights or you don't know information, how you can get the benefit from them, right? You need certain help. If you're introducing to this area the artificial intelligence and the promotion of the information with the help of the artificial intelligence, you're also helping to curtail the corruption there.
Okay, let's finish today's discussion with the question, what's the role of the parliament, as you are MPs in Ali Majlis? What's the role of the parliament in anti-corruption measures?
I think is the most that our discussion we talk about the transparency, about the system strategy, eradicating, and the role of parliament
is to monitor
Mm-hmm.
what is going on, what is happening, plus that the committees under the parliament, for example, I am representing the environmental committee, and we will also work on to eradicate this, not to leave any spaces for the corruption in the development of drafting the laws. Yeah, and this is very important because wherever there is a gap, there can be always a road to the corruption, and we have to eradicate this in all this new upcoming and also the old system. We will look back and do inventory all this on environmental sector.
I think another important thing in this regard, our colleague mentioned about the committees. Both chambers of the parliament has a specific committee, special committee on anti-corruption, and they were tasked during the meeting specifically to work with the different kind of spheres to study, scrutinize, find out the elements, the factors that could be attributed to the corruption element, right, phenomenon, and propose solutions. And in the legislative, as was mentioned by my colleague, in the legislative actions, right. That's one thing. Another thing is that we have National Council, where the parliamentarians also are represented, and the parliament's role plays very important role in the legislative action. But at the same time, we are also tasked and entitled to control, to monitor the processes happening in neighborhoods. We can also, and not can, we are actually working every month. We have 1 week to work with our electorate and see what's happening there. And based on that experience, we can also contribute towards the achievement of our goal. That's one. Another important thing is that every committee has very close ties with NGOs, the institutions of civil society, yes, which also helps us to
look broader.
Yes, that's true. And another thing is to take into consideration and to take the information from the wider institutions of our society, right? Which helps us to be on alert and be targeted.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming to our podcast.
Katta rahmat. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.